Japan gave the world the Kaiju, the giant monster. Godzilla rising from the sea to level Tokyo. Mothra, Rodan, a whole cinematic tradition of colossal creatures stomping across the islands. The word itself, Kaiju, means strange beast, and for the better part of a century, Japan has been the global headquarters of the giant monster. It's woven into the culture. And most people assume it's pure fantasy, invented, a product of the imagination and the anxieties of the 20th century. But here's something that might change the way you watch those old films. Because buried in the ground beneath Japan, and, in one remarkable case, still living in its cold mountain streams right now, are real giant creatures. Genuine prehistoric monsters that actually walked, swam, and lurked across the Japanese archipelago. Japan didn't just invent the kaiju. Long before anyone dreamed up Godzilla, Japan was already home to real ones. So today, let me show you the true monsters of Japan. And I promise you, some of them are every bit as strange as anything a film studio ever put on screen. Let's start with the closest thing to Godzilla himself, a giant that rose from the sea. Because the waters around prehistoric Japan were home to one of the most famous marine monsters of all time, the megalodon. The largest shark that ever lived, up to 50 feet long, with teeth the size of your hand. And we know for a fact it patrolled Japanese waters, because Japan is absolutely littered with its fossils. The islands sit in a rich marine setting, and megalodon teeth, along with the teeth of its ancestor Otodus, turn up regularly in Japanese fossil deposits. So the image of a colossal monster lurking off the coast of Japan, ready to rise from the deep, that's not fiction. For millions of years, it was simply the truth. A real 50-foot apex predator cruising the same seas that Godzilla would one day be imagined emerging from. But megalodon lived all over the world. What makes prehistoric Japan special are the monsters that were genuinely strange. The ones that look like something a kaiju designer would invent. And the strangest of all belong to a group so bizarre that scientists themselves gave one of them a name that means ancient paradox. I'm talking about the desmostylians. And these are among my favorite prehistoric animals precisely because they are so hard to describe. Because there is nothing alive today quite like them. The desmostylians were large, herbivorous marine mammals that lived along the coasts of the North Pacific during the Miocene, roughly 10 to 20 million years ago. And here's what makes them special to this story. They are the only order of marine mammals to have gone completely extinct. Every other group, the whales, the seals, the sea cows, still has living members. The desmostylians are gone entirely. And they were, in a very real sense, a uniquely Pacific creature, with Japan as one of their great strongholds. Over 30 fossil sites for one genus alone have been found across the Japanese islands. And the star of the group is Paleoparadoxia, the ancient paradox. Picture an animal the size of a large hippo, but built like nothing you've ever seen. A barrel-bodied creature with thick, sturdy, sprawling legs splayed out to the sides, and a strange mouth full of forward-jutting, bundled teeth that looked almost like a fistful of pencils. When a nearly complete skeleton was dug up in Gifu Prefecture, scientists were baffled by it, and in some ways, still are. The bones are dense and heavy, suggesting it spent a lot of time in the water, ballasting itself down to walk along the sea floor and graze on seaweed and seagrasses. But its powerful, robust limbs suggest it could also haul itself around on land, like a sea lion. So was it a swimmer, a bottom walker, a shoreline lurcher? The honest answer is that its exact lifestyle remains a genuine mystery, which is exactly why it earned the name Paradox. a big, strange, splay-legged sea monster, unique to the ancient Pacific that we still can't fully explain. If that's not a real-life kaiju, I don't know what is. And there's a wonderful footnote to the desmostylian story that captures how mysterious they are. A few years ago, scientists found one of these fossils sitting forgotten in a museum cabinet, a bone that had been dug up over 60 years earlier and misfiled in some tellings as a possible dinosaur bone. It took modern researchers to recognize it for what it really was, another one of these paradoxical Japanese sea beasts hiding in plain sight in a drawer. The monsters of Japan, it turns out, are still being rediscovered. Now let's come on to land, because the prehistoric Japanese islands had their own land giants, and the greatest of them is a genuine national icon among fossil lovers, the Naumann elephant, Paleoloxodon naumanni. This was a species of prehistoric elephant, a relative of the giant straight-tusked elephants that lived across the Japanese archipelago. It first arrived when lower Ice Age sea levels created land bridges connecting Japan to the Asian mainland, letting these great beasts walk across around 340,000 years ago, and again in later cold periods. And the Naumann elephant was magnificent. Smaller than the largest mammoths, but still a powerful, cold-adapted elephant, covered in hair to survive the Ice Age climate, the males carrying long, curving, spiraled tusks. Its fossils have been found at over 100 locations across Japan, from Hokkaido in the north to Kyushu in the south, so these animals roamed the entire length of the islands. One of the richest sources is Lake Nojiri, where so many fossils have been recovered that they developed a whole community excavation tradition around it, letting ordinary people, including children, dig for the bones of these Ice Age elephants. Imagine that. Children in Japan unearthing the remains of real prehistoric monsters from a lake bed. And the Naumann elephant didn't roam alone. It shared the islands with giant deer, big antlered elk, and up in Hokkaido, even woolly mammoths, which crossed down from the north during the coldest periods. Prehistoric Japan had a genuine Ice Age megafauna, a lost world of giants walking the islands. But I've saved the best for last, because there is one real Japanese kaiju that didn't go extinct at all. One prehistoric monster that survived, that outlasted the elephants and the desmostylians and the megalodon, and that is still alive right now, lurking in the cold, clear streams of the Japanese mountains. The Japanese giant salamander. This animal is, without exaggeration, a living monster. It's one of the largest amphibians on Earth, growing up to about 5 feet long, the length of a grown person, with a broad, flattened head, tiny eyes, wrinkled, mottled, slimy brown skin, and a body that looks like it swam straight out of the age of the dinosaurs. And in a sense, it did, because the giant salamanders are a genuinely ancient lineage, often called living fossils. Their body plan has remained remarkably unchanged for tens of millions of years. When you look at a Japanese giant salamander, you are looking at something very close to what its ancestors looked like in the deep past. It is a real, living relic of prehistoric Japan. And it lives the life of a monster too. It's a nocturnal ambush predator, lurking motionless on the bottom of cold mountain rivers, nearly blind, sensing the vibrations of prey in the water, and then striking with a sudden, violent, sideways snap of its huge jaws to swallow fish, crabs, and pretty much anything else that comes within reach. It can live for decades, possibly over half a century. It breathes largely through its wrinkled skin, which is why it needs cold, clean, oxygen-rich water. And in Japanese folklore, this creature is legendary. It's associated with the Hanzaki, and some believe it helped inspire the myth of the kappa, the water spirit of Japanese legend. So this animal isn't just a real prehistoric monster, it's a real prehistoric monster that became a mythological one. The line between kaiju and reality here basically dissolves. But, and this matters, the Japanese giant salamander is now endangered. These living relics are threatened by habitat loss, by dams that block the rivers they breed in, by pollution, and by interbreeding with introduced Chinese giant salamanders. An animal that survived for tens of millions of years, that outlasted the ice ages and the extinctions, is now struggling because of us. There's something genuinely poignant in that the last living kaiju of Japan, a survivor from the deep past, might not survive the present. Conservation efforts are underway to protect them, and I genuinely hope they work. Because to lose this animal would be to lose a living piece of prehistory. So here's the thought I want to leave you with. When Godzilla first rose from the sea in 1954, he was imagined as an ancient creature, awakened and mutated by the modern world. A prehistoric monster crashing into the present. And that image resonated so deeply, I think, partly because it wasn't entirely made up. Japan really was a land of giants. Real colossal sharks patrolled its seas. Real paradoxical sea beasts walked its ancient sea floor. Real elephants roamed its islands. And a real living monster still haunts its mountain streams, right now, tonight, unchanged for millions of years. The kaiju were never purely fiction. They were an echo, a cultural memory maybe, of the genuine giants that this remarkable archipelago has always been home to. Japan didn't need to invent its monsters. It just had to look at what was already buried in its ground and swimming in its rivers. The real kaiju were here all along. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep looking up and maybe watch the water.